I'm 45, married to my husband Todd, who's 47. I have a daughter, Ava, who just turned 22, and Todd has been in her life since she was 9 years old. I raised her mostly on my own after her biological father vanished from the picture when she was still in diapers. Todd stepped in and did everything: of school pickups, dance recitals, helping with homework, college visits. He was there. He was always there. So when we got a fancy envelope in the mail 2 weeks ago, wedding invitation, thick cream paper, cursive letters, I was excited. I wasn't expecting it because Ava had been vague for months, saying she and her boyfriend Matt were taking things slow. But here it was. An invitation to a private wedding. Only, it was addressed to just me. No Todd and Laura. No mom and dad. Just, Laura Jensen. At first, I thought it was a printing error. I laughed and called Ava, expecting her to say it was some weird mistake. She didn't answer. So I texted her. Then emailed. A day passed. Nothing. I called again, voicemail. It felt strange. Ava was never like this. 2 days later, she finally responded. A single text. Can we talk in person? Just you? And I got this sinking feeling I couldn't shake. That was the moment I knew something was off. Really off. She asked to meet at a quiet cafe near her old high school. That already told me something. This wasn't a celebration. It wasn't some bubbly, giddy bride-to-be moment. This was going to hurt. And it did. She walked in before me, already sitting at the corner booth, sipping a chamomile tea like it was any regular Tuesday. When I sat down, she smiled, tight, nervous, practiced. Not the kind of smile you give your mom before telling her she's going to walk you down the aisle. No, it was the kind you give before ripping off a band-aid. She didn't even wait long. She said the wedding was in 2 weeks, that it wasn't traditional, that it was going to be small, intimate, with just a few people. I was confused. What happened to the big wedding she'd always talked about? The one where Todd would walk her down the aisle and everyone would cry and cheer and clap? That's when she dropped the real bomb. She and Matt had already gotten married. Secretly. A courthouse wedding. No guests. No family. Just them. And the upcoming event? It was just a symbolic ceremony. For show. For pictures. She told me not to be upset. That they didn't tell anyone. Not even Matt's parents. That it was just what felt right for them. But the whole time she spoke, she wouldn't meet my eyes. Wouldn't even say Todd's name. So I asked her straight up, why wasn't Todd invited? And her answer? She sighed, paused, then told me, I didn't want to make it complicated. Complicated? This man raised her, paid for her braces, taught her to ride a bike, stayed up with her when she had the flu. He read Pride and Prejudice just to talk to her about it for her English paper. He called her kiddo like it was his own heartbeat. Complicated? I sat there, blinking, wondering what she meant by that. I was stunned, frozen. She kept talking about personal boundaries and starting fresh with Matt and how she didn't want to feel pressured by family dynamics. I barely heard her. All I could think was, she erased him. She erased Todd from the most important day of her life. And worse? She didn't even seem sorry. When I got home that night, Todd was in the kitchen, reheating leftovers and humming to some classic rock station like nothing was wrong. I wanted to pretend for 5 minutes that everything was normal. I really tried. But when he asked, so? What did she want to talk about? I couldn't lie. I told him the truth, every word. That the wedding had already happened. That the event in 2 weeks was just for photos. That we were invited as guests, not family. And that the invitation was sent to just me, on purpose. I will never forget the way his face dropped. He didn't say anything at first. Just stared at the microwave like it had personally betrayed him. Then he nodded once, like he'd been expecting this for years, like some part of him always knew he didn't really count in her eyes. And that broke me more than anything. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't cry. He just quietly left the food on the counter and went to our bedroom. Closed the door. Didn't slam it. Just closed it. That silence was louder than any fight we'd ever had. I sat alone in the kitchen, trying to replay every conversation over the past 6 months. Every moment Ava had acted distant. Every time she changed the subject when Todd was mentioned. Every shrug, every we're still figuring it out excuse. She'd been planning this for a while. And she didn't even give him the decency of knowing. The next morning, I found him in the garage, fixing something that didn't need fixing. I asked if he was okay. He said he was fine. But I know him better than anyone. He's not fine. He's gutted. And he didn't even ask to see the invitation. He just said, guess I won't need a tux. 4 days passed. Ava didn't call. No texts. Nothing. It was like she'd dropped a bomb and moved on with her life. Then, Saturday morning, I got an email. Subject line, quick wedding stuff. I opened it, expecting logistics, maybe the venue, time, dress code. Instead, it was a spreadsheet. A literal spreadsheet, titled Photo Plan, Symbolic Ceremony. Rows and columns, all color-coded. I started scrolling. It listed every single photo she wanted taken: Ava with Matt. Ava with Matt and his parents. Ava with friends. Bridesmaids. Her childhood dog, yes, seriously. Her former ballet teacher. Her half-cousin from her dad's side. Her old college roommate. Todd's name wasn't on a single line. Not under family photos. Not under parental walk-in. Not even under reception dances. Not once. There was a column labeled Mother of the Bride, shot list. I was listed for 3 photos. A hug. Fixing the veil. Lighting a candle. But Todd? He didn't even exist in her curated, perfectly planned gallery. I stared at the screen for a solid 5 minutes, rereading everything. I even checked the notes section, just in case. Nothing. I showed it to him that night. He read it silently, scrolled slowly, and then handed the laptop back without a word. Just stood up, walked to the sink, poured out his half-full glass of wine, and went outside. It was 39 degrees. He didn't even put on a jacket. And that's when it hit me, she didn't just uninvite him. She erased him. Deliberately. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept tossing, replaying memories that suddenly felt like scenes from someone else's life. Todd teaching Ava how to parallel park in an empty lot for hours, refusing to give up until she passed her test. Todd sitting through every single one of her volleyball games, even the away ones, even when she didn't play. Todd crying harder than I did when she got her college acceptance letter. And now, she pretends none of it ever happened. The next day, I finally called her. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I asked her, calmly, why Todd wasn't included in anything. Why she didn't even list him in the photo plan. Why he hadn't been invited as her father. Because that's what he was. She may not share his DNA, but he earned that title 1,000 times over. Her voice was so detached, so clinical. She said, I just didn't feel like it would be authentic. Authentic. Like the 13 years he spent raising her were a phase. Like every scraped knee, every bedtime story, every parent-teacher conference was just background noise to her real story. I asked her if she'd even thought about what this would do to him. She got quiet. Then said she didn't mean to hurt anyone, but that she wanted her wedding day to reflect her truth. That word again. Truth. Funny how people use it to rewrite history when it suits them. I hung up. Not angrily. Just done. When I told Todd, he didn't react. He just nodded once. Like a man absorbing an earthquake from inside a glass house that had already shattered. And later, when he thought I was asleep, I heard him in the hallway. Opening the storage closet. Quietly pulling down the photo boxes. The ones labeled Ava in middle school, Ava's Sweet 16, father-daughter dance. He sat alone in the living room until 3 a.m., looking at proof he was never meant to be erased. The next morning, the wedding reminder email came in. Final guest count needed by Friday. Underneath it was a smiling engagement photo of Ava and Matt, her in a flowing white dress, him in a navy suit, both glowing. I stared at it for a long time. Then I clicked RSVP. There was a drop-down, will you be attending? I hovered over yes, then over no, then back again. Todd came in, holding coffee in both hands. Set one down in front of me. He glanced at the screen, then looked away quickly. I asked him if he wanted to go. He said, you should go. I asked him again, do you want to go? He looked down into his mug and said something that felt like a dagger pressed gently against my ribs. She doesn't want me there, Laura. She just didn't have the courage to say it out loud. I didn't click anything that day. But 2 hours later, Todd forwarded me a receipt for a cabin rental, one town over, the same weekend as the ceremony. He'd booked it for himself. Alone. No words. No message. Just the booking confirmation. It was quiet that evening. We didn't talk much. Later, I went into our bedroom and found a small box on the bed. Inside was a framed photo of Ava at age 11, sitting on Todd's shoulders at the beach, both of them laughing, sunburnt and carefree. On the back, he'd written just one thing in his clean, small handwriting. Best 12 years of my life. That night, I clicked attending. Just me. The venue was a vineyard. All soft lighting, floral arches, acoustic guitars in the background. Everything perfectly curated for Instagram. It didn't feel like a wedding, it felt like a photo shoot with vows attached. I arrived alone, wearing a muted dress Ava had once complimented. I brought no +1. No Todd. Just a smile I had to keep adjusting every 5 minutes like makeup melting in the heat. I saw Ava near the back patio, laughing with her college friends. She looked stunning, of course she did. Hair curled just the right amount, makeup glowing, her white dress tied at the waist, flowy at the bottom. And for a second, it hit me how surreal this was. This girl I once pushed into the world was now somebody's wife. She came over, arms outstretched, saying I looked beautiful. I hugged her. She smelled like roses and anxiety. She leaned in close and whispered, "Thanks for understanding." And that's when I knew, she thought I had accepted all of it. The invitation with Todd's name left off. The photos he wasn't asked to be in. The erasure. She thought I was okay. I smiled and nodded. Because this wasn't the moment to shatter anything. The ceremony was fast. Vows were read. Matt cried a little. People clapped. Drones buzzed quietly overhead capturing every angle. Then came the family photos. They called up Matt's parents first, then Ava's mom. That was me. Just me. I stood next to her as the photographer adjusted our poses. The dress was itchy, the sun too bright, but none of that mattered. All I could think was, Todd should be here. Not just as a guest, as her dad. They never called for him. Because to them, he didn't exist. After the photos, we moved to the reception area, white tablecloths, fairy lights, an open bar already doing heavy lifting for the crowd. I sat at a table near the back. Not at the family table. Not even close. When dinner wrapped, the DJ tapped the mic and announced it was time for speeches. Ava's best friend went first, gushing about college days and finding your lobster. Then Matt's dad stood up with a crumpled napkin of notes and cracked a few dad jokes that made the room laugh politely. And then Ava took the mic. She thanked everyone for coming, thanked Matt for being her rock, thanked both sets of parents for their support. She even threw in a line about how grateful she was for family, chosen or not, for shaping who I am today. And that was it. No special shout out to Todd. Not even a vague nod. Just that. I sat frozen with my wine untouched, wondering how she could stand there and rewrite her life so effortlessly. How she could look into a crowd of people who watched Todd raise her and pretend he was a footnote. But then it got worse. Matt's little cousin, maybe 12 or 13, got dragged up to give a silly toast. She giggled into the mic and said, "Ava, I heard Matt's dad say you don't have a real dad, so you're gonna take his last name and become a real part of the family now." People laughed nervously. Ava blushed but didn't correct her. Didn't flinch. Didn't say, "Actually, I do have a real dad." And that was the moment I knew, this wasn't just a mistake. It was a choice. I left before dessert. No dramatic exits. No tears. Just quiet. I slipped out the side path between two rows of wine barrels, heels crunching gravel, the sound of laughter fading behind me like a song I didn't want to hear anymore. When I got to my car, I sat for a while. I didn't cry, I thought I would, but I didn't. I just felt hollow. Not angry. Not sad. Just done. On the drive back, I didn't go home. I went to the cabin Todd had booked. I hadn't told him I was coming. Honestly, I wasn't sure he'd want to see me, not after what that day had become. But when I knocked, he opened the door like he'd been waiting all along. No questions. No judgment. Just a tired, understanding smile. We didn't talk at first. He poured me a glass of wine. We sat on the back deck, watching the trees sway under a dim purple sky. Then I said it. "She didn't mention you." Not once. He didn't look surprised. He just nodded slowly, then reached into his jacket and handed me his phone. There was a draft message open on the screen. It read, "Ava, I won't be attending your wedding. Not out of spite, but because I've finally accepted that you've chosen to remember your life without me in it. I hope it brings you peace. It breaks my heart, but I can't keep chasing a role I was never meant to play in your version of the story. I love you. I always will. But I'm done begging to be seen. Todd." He never sent it. He didn't have to. Because she wouldn't have heard it anyway. We stayed at the cabin for 2 more days. No calls, no texts. Just space to breathe. Every time I looked at Todd, I saw someone holding in years of quiet heartbreak. The kind that doesn't erupt, it just simmers and settles deep into your bones. On the last morning, I found him on the porch, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise like he was memorizing it. He turned to me and said, "I think I'm ready to stop hoping." It wasn't bitter. It was soft, final. And I knew exactly what he meant. That night, after we got home, he boxed up the photo of Ava on his shoulders, the one he'd left out the week before. Then he pulled down more. Framed school awards. Drawings she made him for Father's Day. A dried flower he'd saved from her 8th grade recital. All of it, carefully placed into a plastic bin, sealed tight, and pushed into the attic without a word. He didn't burn anything. He didn't throw it away. But he put it where she had already left him. Out of sight. Out of reach. Out of her life. And that was his way of saying goodbye. I never responded to the wedding thank you email Ava sent a week later. She signed it Love, Ava and Matt and included a Dropbox link to the official photos. I opened it once. There were pictures of her with everyone, her mom, Matt's parents, college friends, old teachers. There was even one with her childhood piano instructor. Todd wasn't in a single frame. Neither was I. And that told me everything. Because it wasn't that she forgot us. It's that she made sure not to remember. So now we're moving forward. Todd's redecorating the guest room. He's turning it into a studio for woodworking. I'm planning a trip we've always talked about but never made time for. Italy. In the fall. No more saving up for other people's milestones. Just us. And for the first time in a long while, it feels okay. It's not the ending I thought we'd have with Ava. But it's a beginning we're finally choosing for ourselves. And honestly, maybe that's enough.